Well, hello. Thank you all for coming. My name is Amanda and I'm the Communications Coordinator for the YWCA. And this lecture is actually part of a series that we do every month called YWCA Talks, the Community Social Justice Series. And we highlight issues that are mission related to the YWCA, so issues around women and people of different ethnic and racial minorities. And we really try to foster a public discussion around these issues and offer a forum for people like Marci to come in and talk about things that they're passionate about. So I have the pleasure of introducing Marci Mclean. She is from Western Native Vote. She's the executive director there. She's originally from the Blackfeet Reservation in Montana, and following her service in the Army National Guard, she studied at Montana State University College of Technology, where she got an associate degree in physical therapy, and then continued and got her bachelor's degree in human biology with a minor in Native American Studies here at the University of Montana. And in the 2012 election, Marci co-managed the field operations for Western Native Vote for the voter mobilization campaign, and now she serves as the executive director. So everyone please welcome Marci Mclean.
Thank you. So I'll just do a little, I guess, personal background on myself. Like she said, I started with, well, I don't know if it was mentioned there, but I started with Western Native Voice in 2012 as a part-time data entry person, helping them at this point in the campaign to make sure all the forms we collected were put into a database. And just kind of stuck around for a while and kept doing it, and really found out on the grassroots and on the ground part of it, the boots on the ground part of it, what this is all about. And I kind of developed a interest, which grew to a passion for this work. As you can tell, my history is in biology, so nothing to do with civic engagement or politics or anything of that nature. Worked most of my life in the medical field, even when I was in the military. I was a 91 Bravo, which is a medical specialist, equivalent of a civilian EMT. And I see this has a great impact too on our healthcare systems. There's Medicaid expansion, which probably most of you have at least heard about, which was denied by our legislature this year. It would have expanded Medicaid services to over 70,000 Montanans, provided 20,000 jobs. Or 14,000 jobs across Montana, and as I focus on Native Americans, that would have been coverage for 20,000 Native Americans in Montana. So that's just a little bit about me. As far as what Western Native Voice does is we try to expand the civic engagement, the interest and the knowledge for Native Americans across the state of Montana to be more engaged and involved and aware of what's going on throughout the state, not only on the local level, but at the state level and the national level. It's a challenge. A lot of times, some of you may know that we have more pressing issues such as survival and safety and issues like that that really deter us from being engaged in what's going on civically in our state and in our local elections. So let's see, yeah, and I personally have a horrible voting record. If you get on the Montana Secretary of State website, you can see that I have probably only voted 5 to 10 times in my 41 years of my life. So not very good, but I was never given the tools. It wasn't important in my family. We had other issues that we thought were more important: safety, food, housing, education. We had to focus on our basic needs, and it wasn't important. So what we're trying to do with Western Native Voice, and what the founding members, the board members, wanted to do, is provide a permanent infrastructure that continues to provide education and services and support to natives across Montana on all levels, to hopefully they can see how being involved can possibly change your home life. Being engaged could possibly change your home life. The laws that impact us, many of you may know or may not know, but they could change the way we live, the access to supportive services, the ways out of poverty, the ways to better education, the ways to affordable education for higher education. So that's really where they started a while ago. So we work strengthening the leadership circle and amplifying the voice at the native voice at the ballot box. And here is one of our organizers in Great Falls with a teacher in Great Falls, and of course this cute little girl from Great Falls. So it's just kind of showing all, we really think about the future of our kids. Someday we want to be working in the elementary schools on our reservations. Right now we're starting to work with the colleges. We've talked to high schools and down to the elementary level to start planting the seed about voting and civic engagement when they're very young, so that it's just natural to go and register to vote when you turn 18. It's not something that we have to continue to talk people into and convince them that this is important. So that's that Western Native Voice. We're made up of a 4-chair board right now. We have 1 vacant spot. Rhonda Whiting, she's from the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribe. She's our board chair. Carol Juneau, she's our vice chair. She's Mandan and Hidatsa out of North Dakota, but as long as I've been alive, I've known she's lived on the Blackfeet Reservation because her husband is Blackfeet. She's the mother of Denise Juneau, who is our only statewide Native American official in the United States, which is our State Superintendent of Public Schools here in Montana. Gail Small, Northern Cheyenne Reservation. She currently teaches at MSU in Bozeman. And Carolyn Rushi, she's a board member and she teaches in Billings at the elementary schools. Gail Small teaches at MSU. I think Carol, she's just involved in so many things still. Like I see she's kind of starting to drop back from some boards, but she's introduced laws. She's the leader for the Indian Education for All. She's just done so much in the time that she's been here. So with the board that we have now and the board we've had in the past, we have over 100 years of experience in grassroots organizing and political advocacy. So I feel very honored to work with those guys teaching me. I'm pretty lucky. So the staff is myself, Executive Director, Patrick Fisher, our Communications Director. And on election years, we hire 10 field organizers, starting in we'd like to hire in May, but this year we didn't hire till July because of funding. It all depends on how much money we can raise. And there's one on every reservation. There's 7 reservations here in Montana. And then 1 in Missoula, 1 in Billings, and 1 in Great Falls, which are the largest urban Native areas. Like our founding board, like I said, was Janine Pease. She's the founding president of Little Bighorn College. Each of our reservations also have a tribal college on their reservation. We're the only state in the United States to have 1 tribal college on each of our reservations. Gail Small, she's founder of Native Action in 1984, one of the first nonprofit organizations on an Indian reservation. Rhonda Whiting, who's worked GOTV in Indian country since the Jackson campaign, member of Brian Schweitzer's cabinet. She's also a UM alumni with a Juris Doctorate. Go Grizz. Jennifer Perez Cole, who is a former Governor Brian Schweitzer cabinet and a journalist, and she's one of the younger ones who's involved in this. So really, I think, the next generation of the leaders that we have. So the top 3 goals for Western Native Voice for our voter education program is to defeat LR 126. This is kind of what it looks like on your ballot. If you haven't voted yet, please vote no on this. I'll talk more about it a little later. It's an attack on our voter rights and voter access. And with 55% voter turnout in our targeted precincts. And our targeted precincts are on or near reservations where they have 50% or more Native population. And that's, we use the census to figure that out, also talking with clerk and recorders. County officials, we just kind of, strategically pick those precincts. And then we wanted to register 2,000 new voters in this election cycle. So I give you a little bit of history on Native voting. In 1924 was the Indian Citizenship Act. It granted citizenship to Native Americans in 1924. We're the first ones here, but last ones to get citizenship. With implications that would apply at the state and local levels. But as time went on, we found out there was ways that local officials could deny us that citizenship. didn't pay taxes, lived on a reservation, wasn't a member of this or that. It just, the list went on and on about reasons why they found for us not to vote. So in 1942, during the World War II draft, the state and local officials learned that Indian voting could be reduced or neutralized by employing a host of election rules that make it difficult, if not impossible, for us to vote. Again, that's like they say we don't pay taxes and other issues. So in 1945, when our Native American soldiers returned home from World War II, they were denied the right to vote. There's a 90-year-old gentleman who currently lives in Red Lodge who tells the story about when he came home from serving in the war and was denied his right to vote. He was turned away at the polls when he went to vote. So this, you know, it went on for a long time. And then in '65 was the last time the last Native American was given the right to vote. I think one of the last states was Utah. Up until then, you know, it was a hurdle, and even today we have hurdles, but at least legally we have this to back us now when there are disenfranchisement and voter suppression tactics. So the Voting Rights Act is a federal law, and it states that no voting qualification or prerequisite to voting or standard, practice, or procedure shall be imposed or applied by any state or political subdivision to deny or abridge the right of any citizen of the United States to vote on account of race or color. This was huge for us. After this, at least the law couldn't prevent us from voting. In a huge case for our state was in 1983, Windy Boy versus Bighorn County, and this was one of our founding members, Janine Pease Windy Boy. It's the first Indian case outside of the southern United States. The federal district court ruled that invalidated at-large elections, ruling that. So anyway, at-large elections were no longer allowed in Bighorn County. The way it was structured before that, the natives never had a majority vote or voice or vote to elect officials to represent their voice. So it was always somebody who was not favorable, was not sensitive, was not knowledgeable on Indian issues. And after this, they were able to elect officials who would represent them fairly. And like I said, it allowed them to elect Native Americans in their local races. So a little bit of history of Western Native Voice. We were founded in 2011 by those 5 board members. And from their first campaign, well, our first campaign was 2012. I joined in October of 2012. That year we registered 5,600 new voters in our targeted areas on and off the reservations. Half of Montana's Indian population lives off the reservations and half live on the reservations. We tabled at over 100 events statewide, and 8 Native American leaders were elected to the Montana legislature. And Denise Juneau, like I said, the only statewide Native American woman elected as state superintendent of public instruction, which was huge, you know. And there was other races that we decided, or that we helped decide the winner of. But Western Native Voice is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. So when we are out there working, we do not tell anybody who to vote for. It's just getting them to the polls. But, you know, there are races that we did help decide, and thank goodness for everybody getting out to vote, because we elected people like Denise Juneau and Governor Bullock who still address, I think, effectively and passionately address Indian issues on and off our reservations. In 2013, we focused on expanding our organization with our Be a Voice campaign. And at this point, we did membership drives. We recruited 1,250 members, tabled at over 30 events, and did leadership training with 70 new leaders. What membership is to us, it's people who we have contact with, people who want to be on our email list, people who want to receive information about what we're doing, what's going on in Indian country, and how they can be a part of making change or take action on a certain bill at the national or the state level. So I guess I would talk a little bit more about the obstacles for Natives in voting. So we've had a history as Native people of mistrust with the government. I don't know what the knowledge is here, but our little kids were taken from our homes when my grandmother was one of those little kids that was taken from her home against her will or her parents' will. This is what the missionaries did because of the government's orders, if you will, just to put it briefly. You know, and they were not allowed to speak their language. They were not allowed to practice their ceremonies. It was illegal to practice our spiritual ceremonies until 75, I think it was, 1975. It was finally legal for us to practice our religious beliefs. So a long history of mistrust. I could go on and on and on, but it's a long history. There's a lot of books and movies out there about it. So, you know, because of that, and because of, like I said earlier, there's pressing issues, there's meals, there's survival, there's safety, there's all these other things that we have to address. So we were unengaged, you know, typically most of us. We've always had a traditional voting system, but it's not like today. We didn't select between Republican and Democrat. We didn't have to choose between one that doesn't support our issues and one that does. It was about choosing a leader to follow who you thought could best bring you food for the winter, who you thought could best protect you during battles, who you thought would take best care of your family. And to me, that seems like a pretty good voting system, but regardless, it's not how it is today. So, and oftentimes we're given the wrong information from commercials, from radio ads, from TV ads. There's a lot of negativity on the commercials. I know when I was younger, I would not watch any sort of political commercial. I dreaded election season because of the commercials, and it was a lot of negative talk. And if we want to draw more people in, I don't think having negative ads is the way to go, because a lot of times we have enough negativity in our lives, especially on our reservations, that it just deters us from that, I think. Or they have no information. Like what we're doing right now, we provide information through Facebook, through email. We do newspaper ads, we do radio ads. A lot of our work, though, is grassroots, on the ground, talking to people in the communities, talking to the elected officials in the tribal councils. We do a lot of work. We keep going all year round. I told Amanda that I keep waiting for things to slow down. After the first election, when I first started in October, it still hasn't slowed down, and I think it has picked up. And of course, distance. Not one reservation has an election office, has an election office for the 30 days, full 30 days before election day, like we have in here in Missoula. You can go down to the clerk and recorder's, the county office, and register to vote, update your address, cast your early ballot. You can do a lot of things here in Missoula or Billings or Great Falls or any other cities, even your border towns, Cut Bank, Hardin, and the other places, and go take care of business. Well, we don't have that on our reservations. So distance is a huge obstacle for us to overcome. And again, what is the poverty level? We have huge, I don't even know the percent. I should. Maybe somebody else in here knows the percent of families under the poverty level. And unemployment, 70 to 80% on some reservations. So a lot of times we don't have the gas money to go down there to take care of this small need or unimportant need to some people. So overcoming these obstacles, what does Western Native Voice do to overcome these obstacles? We do a lot of voter education, like I've said before, just talk about how to vote, what to vote on, what issues are there. We research the issues that are going to be talked about or decided upon and share what we find with people. Most of the time we don't tell them to support or oppose. We just say this is how this would impact you, and then we let them decide. You contact your officials and let them know how you feel. We don't try to impose our view unless it's something like LR 126. Then we tell them, vote no, it's bad. And increase the resources. So we help with providing people rides to the polls, going to their doors and offering to register them to vote so they don't have to go and get that form. We'll help them return it back to the clerk and recorder's office. And now, we have Native leaders that are sitting at these decision tables, these tables of decision makers. Like I said, we have a Native caucus of 8 members right now. So I think they're a key role for us Natives in Montana. They are very involved and engaged and passionate individuals. And I just might say that the majority of them are women. 6 out of the 8 are women. So I think that's huge. It's a Even our board, like it's all women. That's when we're out recruiting, it's the women who are willing to do this. So I think that's huge too for us. But we're still trying to recruit the young men. This young guy, he works for us part-time up on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation. He's a high school senior now, but when he can, he comes and works for us. As long as we give him enough notice, he's usually available to work for us, so we don't have to drive down there every time there's an event. So yeah, we work to build leaders in all of our communities. And again, the satellite voting office and the alternate voting office. I'll talk more about them as well. So overcoming obstacles, the Glacier County has a satellite office on the Blackfeet Reservation. We're the first ones in the history of the state of Montana to have a satellite voting office. And to this day, we still are. So that's awesome. I think, let's see, we just finished our second week, and it's pretty good. We hire, Western Native Voice has an organizer there, plus we hire up the equivalent of 4 employees to work for those 2 days. It's only open 2 days a week. 8 hours each day, but it doesn't close down the services in Cut Bank either. So they have services in Cut Bank and in Browning. This is, the Glacier County has worked hard on this. They've worked for, I think, 9 years. I've talked to commissioners there and clerk and recorders there. And so it's not something that they just jumped into. It's been a lot of work. The clerk and recorder is very passionate about protecting the integrity of her election system, so she's done a lot to get to this point. In 2012, she would personally take a ballot. If somebody requested a ballot at the satellite office, she would personally drive that ballot up there and then drive that ballot back. So she's done a lot personally, and with her co-workers and staff to make this happen for Indian Country. And the clerk and recorder's office is 34 miles from our tribal headquarters. So that's almost a 70-mile round trip to go register yourself to vote or vote early if you're going to be out of town and you learn last minute and you're a registered poll voter. So you have to drive 40 or 70 miles round trip. And it's up to 70 miles from the furthest point on our reservation, which should be way out by the Canadian border and the Glacier Park border. So that's 140 miles round trip. And like I said, it's open 2 days a week for 8 hours. And then the second office is called an alternate election office because they have to close their services in Hardin while they move to Crow. And this is a lady casting her vote there on the first day, I think it was on the first day of the satellite election or the alternate elections office. 12 miles from the tribal headquarters, so it's up to 62 miles one way from the farthest tribal housing location on their reservation. Open 2 days a week for 6 hours each day. And you know, the downside of this is it takes from services at the Hardin office, which is not ideal, but it's a step in the right direction. And hopefully by 2016 we can fix these. So what Western Native Voice does to complement the satellite office is, like I said, we hire up the 4 extra individuals, both on the Crow and the Blackfeet Reservation. We work closely with the clerk and recorders. In Crow, we hosted a feed on the first day of the office, just in the park where everybody kind of gathers for events and stuff on their reservation. Grassroots voter drives, I was up there on, let's see, I think it was Wednesday, walking the neighborhoods of Lodge Grass, Montana on the Crow Reservation. So that was interesting, a learning experience for me, the first time I had ever been to Lodge Grass, Montana. But it was good to see the people, you know, and not many people are ready to go vote right then when you talk about it knocking on their door. So some people said they would go on Thursday, so our organizers went back and gave them a ride to the poll on Thursday to go vote. And like I said, we provide transportation. It's a huge issue for us on reservations, having transportation. Sometimes one household has maybe 5 adults in there, and they all share one car. Some of them work, some of them stay home and take care of the kids. So transportation is a huge issue for some people on our reservation. And educating voters on their voting rights, like when we're knocking on their door, did you know you can go vote early? Oh really? What does that mean? How do you do that? Like they don't understand the concept of early voting. They think the only day they can go vote is November 4th. So once again, it's educating the citizens on what are your rights, what are your options, what is out there for you. And it's going good. We're hearing a lot of good feedback. A lot of tribal councils are appreciating the work that we do. tribal councils are often busy with your day-to-day things such as safety, housing, food, education, all that stuff. So I think I'm beginning to see they really appreciate Western Native Voice focusing on this thing that we know hopefully they're all have some interest in, since they're all elected leaders too. So this is one of the ads that we placed in the Bighorn County, this is Bighorn County News. We air it we keep sharing it on our Facebook on the day before the office is open and on the days of, where you have on there, the hours of it. Let them know that there's rides to go vote. If you need a ride, here's our number. And then, of course, we always tell people to vote no, or suggest people vote no on LR 126. Carol Juneau was quoted in I think the Great Falls Tribune. She had a letter to the editor, and she said LR 126 will change the law for the worse and limit our right to vote, thus limiting our voice and our power. Again, great words from a great lady. So again, we have our number there to call for a ride to the polls. And then here's the one we aired in the Browning paper, the Glacier Reporter. And we just have them put up all over town in the tribal offices, the Indian Health Services, the BIA buildings, the schools, the tribal colleges. Again, with pretty much the same message, same information at least, just a different format for them. So our 2014 community engagement campaign, like I said, we hire and train 10 new community organizers, registered 1,000 new voters, recruit 1,200 new members, and reactivate another 1,000 inactive voters. And we can get lists. These lists are available if you pay a small fee, to the van and get access to those. So we get the list of names and then we go find them in the neighborhoods. A lot of times, our organizers are all local. They're all from the community, so they know pretty much where people live, at least have some idea of where they live. One of our organizers working up in the CSKT area with his volunteer, they do good work. They're the guys, sometimes they're the ones talking to the tribal councils, because I think at times the tribal councils listen more to their constituents than they do to an outside voice, which is our model that we really work on with Western Native Voice, is a matriarchal approach. We approach the mothers and the grandmothers of our communities. We know if we convince one grandmother to agree with us, we probably have at least 100 to 500 people who will agree with us. And if we tell, like I know we told the grandmother in Lodgegrass the other day, yes, I will tell him, and when we told her the importance of the LR 126, she even had more interest and was more, yes, I will make sure I tell him to vote. So it's a very effective model, and we do what we can to make sure we use that. We'll also train 50 new leaders. We have a leadership conference in 2013 we did here at the University of Montana. This year we'll either do it on a tribal college campus or in Helena. We're still trying to decide where we're going to do it. Expand our voter education program, and on election day we'll hire 130 people across the state of Montana on our reservations and in Missoula, Billings, and Great Falls. We'll recruit community volunteers. A lot of our reservations have people who do this every year just out of the goodness of their heart. So if we can, at least provide them with some gas vouchers or help them with a meal or whatever to make sure they continue to do this work, we'll do what we can. And we utilize media alerts on the radios, the newspapers, TV, Facebook, and also grassroots, word of mouth. Go tell your uncle to vote, and we just keep that going. It works good. And Camp Crier, I'm not sure if everybody knows what that means, but Crow is one area that really uses this. They have gentlemen, and it's their cultural, I guess you'd say their tribal Camp Crier, and there's a certain way that you approach them, and I'm not going to go into it because I don't really understand it, and I don't feel it's my place to. But then you give him something and ask him to share your message. He goes around it with I've seen him in a pickup with a microphone and some speakers, and goes through the communities of the reservation and tells people the messages, whatever he's been hired to do. So and they say it's very effective, because people listen to him. People know he has an important message to share, and he does it in their Crow language. So everybody, from what I understand, everybody on their reservation understands their language. They may not all speak it, but they all understand it. So we'll do that this year, and we're going to try it in Browning and see how it works. So LR 126, how many of you have heard of LR 126? Oh good, almost everybody. Vote no on it if we want to protect our right to vote. I took this off of their website. There is a website, just Google Montanans for Free and Fair Election. I don't remember the address. But we want to protect all Montanans' freedom to vote when we want to vote and however we want to vote. A lot of times there's things come up in our lives that don't allow us to change our address in time, or other things come up and we forget. Montana has an election system to be proud of. We have one of the best in the nation. Honest, open, and accurate. Like I said, some of the best in the nation. LR 126 threatens our democracy by placing unfair hurdles in front of tens of thousands of citizens of Montana, and takes away our freedom to use election day registration. If you guys have questions, you can stop anytime and raise your hand and I'll stop and answer. So election day registration stats, like 28,000 Montanans have used this since 2006. And 28% of those have been in, 28% of that has been Native Americans in Native districts. Well, you can't really say if a voter is Native or not, because that's not a statistics that's associated with voting, but been used on our Native dense precincts. And these are precincts that are, 70, 80, 90% Native. And then keep in mind that only 7% of our Native population is Indian. So that's a pretty high percentage of us Natives that use that. And our Natives, they are the seniors, the veterans, the people with disabilities, the students, the single working mothers, the families with two working parents that are very busy, sports and daycare and school and everything else that comes up. This young girl, she's working for us in Browning. She's 17 years old. She will graduate in the spring. And she answered one of our Facebook ads for a job announcement, calling in to see how she can help, see if she can work. She didn't know if she could do it since she's under 18. So she puts in more hours than our other people. It's really exciting to me to see this young lady doing that. It's huge for us. And this young lady, she's a student at the tribal college up there. So she brought her to go vote, and they are at the satellite elections office in Browning. So these are the kind of things that I really appreciate being part of. Making that change for a 17-year-old girl to be, engaged and care about this kind of job. So why should, not I, but why should you care about election day voter registration in Montana? It's an attack on our constitutional right to cast a vote when we want to and when we need to, early or on election day. Election day registration is needed to protect our recently returned veterans, our seniors, our disabled, just a whole group of people, especially in our students, our college students, which in here in Missoula we can appreciate that. It's a safeguard for all voters to have this last minute option. If this passes and we forget and election day comes upon us, we're just out of luck. We can't cast our vote. So some final thoughts. This is, like I said, having a table at the decision-making table, having a seat at the table that makes decisions. Western Native Voice, thanks to our awesome board members who have a good history and a lot of respect by our elected officials, we get to go sit down and talk with Governor Bullock about ways to expand voting on our reservation. We get to talk about pre-K education. We get to talk about even we touch a little bit on domestic violence, but it's not something we're specialized in. It's not something we talk about. But we did go to Helena and lobby on the Violence Against Women Act when Representative Calf Bosserbs presented it. I personally went and talked on that. So we do what we can to make sure bills introduced that impact us in Indian country, that we have a voice there. If one of the staff members don't go, then we will recruit one of our members or more of our members to go. So I think it's good. They've worked hard to get this voice and have this seat at the table. And it's, like I said, I just can't say enough about our board members. It's truly an honor to work under them. So I guess just This should be the last one, yeah. I'd just like to kind of close up and have a discussion on what is the intersection of the mission of Western Native Voice and the YWCA community, or your community. If you're not part of the YWCA community, what is the intersection for us to work on? I will start with mentioning the ACLU has worked on the Fort Peck Reservation, just won a lawsuit with the school board elections, and I can ask one of these gentlemen to talk a little bit more about it because they work very, very closely with that. So it's people like them, organizations like the ACLU, Western Native Voice. We work closely with organizations that have been here a while, have extensive knowledge, both legally and community-wise, on how, you know, what's going wrong in our communities and how do we stand together to fix all these problems. Would one of you want to talk a little bit about that case, just briefly, what it is, how you won, and what the school...
I'm John Ellingson, and I was one of the attorneys on a case that we brought in Wolf Point, and it was an odd situation. The demographics up in Wolf Point are predominantly Native American, strong majorities in the school districts that we were talking about, but excuse me, you know, this combination of all of the factors that work against voting when you're on a reservation, unemployment, getting food on the table, taking care of your kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, discouragement about your ability to cast a meaningful and effective vote, kept the turnout of Native Americans low, and consequently they did not have school boards that reflected the population. We looked at it. It was a case that was brought to us, first to Scott Crichton, who's the executive director of the Montana ACLU. Scott referred it to me. We looked at the case and discovered that the districts were malapportioned, that one of the districts in particular gave far too much weight to a part of the district that was predominantly Anglo, to the detriment of the balance of the district that was predominantly Native American. So we sued, claiming that that was a violation of the United States Constitution. We won. We now have new districts that will give the Native Americans in the area a much stronger possibility of having an impact on, you know, this very important element of our government, which is school boards. When we think about our democracy, I think we want to think about our democracy representing our values. And the fact of the matter is that this malapportionment in Wolf Point was electing a school board that didn't reflect the Native American values that predominate in the area. As a consequence, the schools didn't reflect the Native American values. So Native American values, we discovered, were not welcome in the elementary school and in the high school. And, you know, there's a cascading impact of what that means up there that consists of more dropouts in the Native American community, disproportionate disciplinary actions against members, students who are Native American, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the first election under our victory comes up in May of next year, and we are hoping that we can get people registered to vote, we can get them out to vote, and that the school board will then reflect the values of the community, and that in reflecting the values of the community, that will have an impact on the teachers who are chosen and the method of instruction in the schools, and it'll turn around that situation so that we have fewer dropouts, we have fewer disproportionate incidents of disciplinary action directed towards Native Americans. We'll have fewer suicides, all of those things, and that the government will reflect the values of the population up there. That's essential to our democracy. So we're real happy that we won the case, and we're real happy that there's an opportunity to turn things around up there.
Good job.
Thank you. So those are things that, that we face every day here as Native Americans. And I guess I didn't really touch on the subject of what makes it so important and what is so big about having a satellite election office, like when he was talking about the racism that goes on. For us from the reservation to walk into our clerk or our county office I can speak for me personally, in Cut Bank, Montana, is not a pleasant experience. We are treated rudely. We are disrespected. We a lot of times feel intimidation when we go in there. And this is personal story, but also people of my community. I kind of feel like I have a pretty good, belief in myself, but I know there's members of my family and members of my community that won't stand up to people. Like, especially now, like when I was younger I didn't, but especially now I won't let anybody push me around. But I know there's members of my community in Browning that don't have the education and the awareness that I have on what are my rights to walk into this building. It is not okay for somebody to treat me different than my non-Native American counterpart. That's what's huge about these elections office. We brought people into these elections office who would probably refuse to go into a county office unless they had to go there. So it's important on many levels, not just because it's closer, but because I feel comfortable going here. I feel, one of the gals who we brought there, which was my cousin, she's like, I'm really glad I did this. She had voted years ago, maybe once, I think, and she felt really good about it. She said, I feel really good about this experience. Thank you for bringing me here. And I was like, so you'll vote every time now, right? I don't have to come and bother you anymore. So it was a good experience for her because it was in a familiar place with our people. So if we can do this on every reservation, which is what we hope to do with having talks with Secretary of States, governors, clerk and recorders, having people make this not an option, but a requirement to have this voting office for 30 days, like they do off the reservation. I was just informed not too long ago that Valley County, so I'm not very knowledgeable on this, but there's a thing called MACO Conference, Montana Association of Counties. So they had their meeting out in Hamilton this year. And every clerk and recorder that serves Native American constituents was part of this subcommittee. I don't know what the exact title was, but Valley County removed themselves from that committee, and they serve 2 precincts on the reservation, 2 precincts in the Fraser area, and I looked it up. It's about 1,000 voters who now do not have a voice at this MACO conference. So to me, that should not be optional. If you are serving Native Americans, you should have to hear their issues, maybe. But it's things like that, and I just learned of this a while ago, and when we're in the middle of elections, I'm not sure what to do about it. But it's something that I do want to be addressed, if at least not I want the public to be aware of what's going on. Racism is real. I'm sure you guys know I see racism things around here, and anybody who's in this room probably knows that it's real and it's here, and we do what we can to overcome it, and I think a big part of it is educating. For me, it's educating minorities, Native Americans, it's educating women. When we work in the urban areas, we target like-minded people. If we go to knock on a door and see it's not a Native American, we don't just turn and walk away and say, oh, sorry for bothering you. We treat that person just like, and in this day and age, like I said at my last presentation, how do you know who's Native American? I have a brother who is over 6 feet tall, blonde hair and blue eyes. You would never guess by looking at him that he is Native. So appearance is not something, it's a way of life. It's a way of living. It's not because you have a paper that says you're this much Indian or whatever. It's a way of life. So, we work with like-minded people, like Montana Women's Vote here in Billings, Forward Montana here in Missoula. So, we work with other organizations who do the same things for other populations of people, and I think that's the way that we succeed, is working together as a collective force and a collective voice. And what we as Western Native Voice attempt to do is bring together Native Americans to have one voice. And I've talked to a lot of people in the younger generation, younger than myself, and talked about the importance of bringing us together, because we as Natives, we're kind of divided, if you will. It's obvious we're separated by many, many miles. And we are different cultures, we are different ways. I think we have more differences among our tribes and our reservations than we do similarities. We're so different, the way we speak, our cultural behaviors and practices, they're all different. So, but what we're trying to foster is bringing together this next generation who sits together to bring our voice to Helena or to DC from Montana, and we have a louder voice. And we support each other on the issues that are important to us. So I'm pretty excited when I talk to the young college kids. They are on board. You know, older folks are set in their ways and they sometimes don't want to do things a different way. But it's part of Western Native Voice. We just do a lot with the leadership, registering voters, civic engagement, really educating people on, and I say people because it's not just Indians we educate. If you want to be on our email blast, I didn't bring any memberships, but you can grab my card and send me an email and say, hi, add me to your email list, and we'll certainly do that. Because I think a lot of the bills and issues that we attack are not just Native focused. Some of them are, like helping protect the right to have our bison on our reservation. That's pretty Native focused. And language preservation, that's pretty Native focused. So there's a lot of them that are Native focused, but some of them aren't. Like I mentioned earlier, the VAWA, Violence Against Women Act, that's universal. Education, pre-K education, that's universal. So if you want to get on our list, you can. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
I have a question. Has there been an increase of people who are actually running for those like positions, the elected officials coming to the reservation because of more people being able or, you know, getting registered to vote?
Is there...
I guess just like the people who are actually running for those elected offices.
Or the
like
statewide?
Yeah, or even just in like the countywide, coming to the reservation, because that's a group of people that they could solicit votes from.
Yes.
There has been increases.
Yes. It's, yes. I'm just trying to, yes, people come to our reservations. Let's see, trying to figure out a good way to put this that is effective. So they come to our reservations to get Natives to vote for them, but they don't care about our issues. They want our votes, but they don't care about our issues. Yes, it's happening now. It's been happening for the last year. And voting records of these people in DC show that they do not care about our issues. So when you have people vote one way on an issue in DC and come back to Montana and behave in a manner that wants to make Montanans feel like they really care about our issues, it's very, yeah, it happens. I guess I would say exploiting Native Americans. And you know, I guess sometimes as Native Americans, when you get that rub on the shoulder or that handshake or that picture with somebody who's, you know, kind of big, you might want to vote for them. But we do let people know about voting records of people who are elected at the state level. We keep track of how everybody votes on bills that are important to us. We keep track and we can share that with people. And it's what it's all about, education. If you want to know which person to choose, go to this site and look at this information. So we're trying to expand our education in that ways. It's just not all about somebody who comes to take a picture with you and who treats you nice for that day. Like I say, they want our vote, but they don't care about our issues. All of our issues. So, any other questions?
Marci, you know, your question up here about the intersection with the YWCA mission and Montana Native Voice. Our mission is around racism, is to raise awareness among white people of racism in western Montana, encourage people to take action to interrupt it, and then to become allies to people of color. And it seems to me like you're doing a lot of work within the Native community, that if there are issues that you're working on, we could then be that voice in, you know, especially in the Missoula area, among white people around like LR 126 or any other issue like that. I think that would be something we'd be very interested in doing.
Great. We can talk. We'll follow that up and talk about it, because that would be good. I mean, and when I as I go along and attend these events, when I first started, I guess it's been 2 years, yeah. I was the only Native American in these rooms sometimes, and to me that just didn't sit well with me. So I went to a training in 2013, I believe it was, and I was the only Native in there. And I told myself, I'm going to make sure that this is not the case next year, that there isn't only one Native American in there. So this time around there was 10 Natives in there. I was pretty, you know, I was glad that I seen that happen, and I want to continue to see that happen. I went to a training in Helena a while ago, and I think I was the only Native attendee. Maybe there was another one, but it just shouldn't be like we should have equal representation at all levels. We are doing good at the state legislature, though. We have 10%, I think, of the caucus is Native American. That's good. And we have a couple races. And when I say Native, it's Native Americans who support our issues, such as Medicaid expansion, such as protecting our waters, protecting our air, protecting our children, securing funding for public education. So it's not, we don't just, you know, expose or talk about Indians. It's just Indians who are sensitive, because there are Indians out there who don't vote the right way on Medicaid expansion and other issues that impact us, Violence Against Women Act, for one reason or another. So yes, working with allies, informing allies with organizations such as yours, it's needed on our reservations. Why? And I was thinking, as I was talking to Amanda, like, what programs are on our reservations that are providing similar services as yours? And are they effective? Do they have access to what you guys have access to for training modules, for other things like that? And I think as we're, I talked with, we used to use the word empowerment a lot, and I've since learned that that's not such a good word to use with Natives. So strengthening, I don't know, helping, you know, providing them, educating them on issues. And, but to have an organization such as the YWCA collaborate with programs that, because I know there are domestic violence programs at home or on the reservations, but what resources do they have? And that I do not know. But it's something.
We have a memorandum of understanding with the Blackfeet Domestic Violence Program, because we have shelter down here, and that's oftentimes what's needed, is a woman needs to leave the reservation to be safe and come to shelter. Our shelter is very limited in capacity, so we typically only serve women from our area, except for Blackfeet.
Oh, nice.
And so that's one way we're working. It'd be great if we could kind of share training as well, and with other reservations. But that one was kind of a natural fit for us, because we served a couple Blackfeet women, and then had conversations with them.
Yeah. Yeah, things like that. Like, I mean, it's just providing, and like working with ACLU, that opportunity is I think, a very good opportunity, because as I'm in the community talking to people, I'm learning about inequities that are going on in the communities, and I try to get back to their organization. And I know a lot of times they don't have the resources to address everything, but if there's some stark, you know, contrast on our reservation that is different than the border town or something, then, you know, hopefully they can find the resources to address those issues and change. And it's all about education. And you talked about educating the non-natives. That is key. And I think Indian Education for All, that's, you know, one of the main goals of that is to educate non-natives on native life. We had a person, a non-native person helping us do some organizing in Indian country. And because people don't understand our cultures and understand our ways, they appear disrespectful, or maybe at times ignorant, or very rude. And I'm sure that that is not the intention, but when you don't understand our ways, that's the way it appears to us. Like when I go into Crow Country, I never go by myself, and I never am at the front of the messaging. You know, it's just the way, it's a cultural thing, you know, and there's a way you approach certain people. There's a way you approach people of ages. Even in our language, our traditional language, which I do not speak, but I do know a little bit about it, there's different words you use when you address people of opposite sex, when you address people of a different age group. So there's, you know, words are said differently. So of course our actions have to reflect that. So educating non-natives is huge, which I've thought about getting into, because when we had the 10 natives at the training, there was a sort of a insensitivity to our culture and our ways at that training, is how it appeared to the natives. But I know it's not, because these people that did the training, I work with them closely, and they're not racist. They're not discriminating against us. It's just a clash, and it's a bringing together of two cultures. And when they don't understand our ways, like we Indians, we laugh a lot, and we laugh at things that probably non-Indians don't laugh at a lot of the times. We call it Indian humor. And it was happening at the conference, but the trainers were seeing it as rude. But it's not rude, it's our cultural ways. So I think a lot of cultural awareness will help, hopefully, change this discrimination, but it's generations old, and so it'll take a lot of work and a lot of generations to fix it. I think Missoula is one of the best places to be. I left here 2 years ago after being here for 10 years, and can't wait to come back someday. So any other questions, comments, concerns? Thank you guys for having me and Western Native Voice and listening.